You just closed a massive, high-stakes initiative without breaking a single sweat, but a 2-sentence email waiting on your phone is about to make you throw up in the front seat of your car. 10 minutes ago, you were flawless. You stood at the head of a sprawling mahogany boardroom table, completely commanding the room. You anticipated every question. You dismantled every objection before it was even fully spoken. Your voice never wavered. You are the architect of outcomes, an elite performer who leaves absolutely nothing to chance. When people look at you, they see a force of nature. They see someone who executes, someone who optimizes, someone who wins. That is your identity. It is the armor you wear into the world every single day. But then the meeting ends. The congratulations finish. The forced smiles drop. You walk out to the parking garage. The heavy concrete walls swallow the noise of the city, leaving only the deafening echo of your own footsteps. You unlock your car, sit in the driver's seat, and the silence crashes down on you. The screen of your phone lights up. A notification. It isn't from a client. It isn't from an investor. It is an email from a divorce lawyer. 2 brief, sterile sentences confirming that the papers have been drafted. It is really happening. Suddenly, your chest tightens. The air in the car feels too thick to breathe. The master of the universe, the brilliant strategist who just orchestrated a corporate masterpiece, is now gripping a cold leather steering wheel, completely paralyzed by a panic attack. This was never supposed to be the narrative. You mapped out your personal life with the exact same ruthless efficiency you applied to your career. When you and your partner decided to have a child, you treated the transition into parenthood like an IPO. You heavily researched the absolute best pediatricians. You curated a pristine, perfectly painted nursery months in advance. You built complex spreadsheets for feeding schedules and bought smart cribs designed to optimize your baby's sleep cycles. You truly believed that if you just applied enough effort, enough strategy, and enough resources, you could engineer the perfect family. But the color-coded calendars couldn't predict the vicious, whisper-shouting matches at 3 in the morning. Your flawless logic couldn't de-escalate the sheer, grinding emotional exhaustion of a newborn. The aggressive, fix-it mentality that earned you promotions and accolades only built a wall of ice between you and your partner. And now, the beautiful home you tried so desperately to manage has fractured into pieces. This is the crushing cognitive dissonance you wake up to every single morning. You are entirely in control at the office, trusted to lead teams and solve impossible problems, yet you are violently drowning in the chaos of your personal life. The world claps for your professional success, while you sit in the dark feeling like an absolute fraud. You feel like a total failure in the only role that ever actually mattered. You spent your entire life believing that with enough effort, you could build, optimize, and manage anything, even a new family. But what if the very traits that made you unstoppable in the boardroom are the exact same ones tearing your home apart? When you encounter a problem, your brain instantly shifts into overdrive. It is a biological reflex. You identify the friction, isolate the root cause, draft a protocol, and execute. This is the exact algorithm that built your spectacular career. You are the ultimate fixer. So, when the foundation of your new family started cracking under the immense weight of a newborn, you did what you do best. You tried to fix it. When the baby wouldn't sleep, you didn't just rock them. You bought medical-grade biometric monitors and cross-referenced sleep data on a color-coded spreadsheet. When the sheer, grinding exhaustion of early parenthood made your partner distant and resentful, you didn't just sit with them in the mess. You offered unsolicited solutions. You diagnosed their emotional state. You recommended couples counseling like it was a quarterly performance review. You scheduled mandated, quality time on a shared digital calendar and approached conflict resolution with the sterile efficiency of a corporate merger. To you, this was an act of profound devotion. You were deploying your absolute best skills to save your family. You were aggressively managing the crisis to protect the people you love. But human connection does not respond to a corporate rescue plan. To your partner, your relentless problem-solving didn't feel like love or support. It felt like an interrogation. It felt like being micromanaged in their own living room. Every time they tried to express sadness, overwhelming anxiety, or pure exhaustion, you countered with logic, strategy, and an immediate next step. You didn't realize that by rushing to eradicate their pain, you were completely invalidating it. This is the fix-it fallacy. It is the tragic, invisible blind spot of the highly ambitious. You operated under the fatal assumption that a marriage and a crying child are simply complex projects that can be optimized with enough data. But a colicky infant at 3 a.m. does not care about your workflow. A grieving, burnt-out partner does not want a strategic roadmap, they want to be seen. They want you to drop the heavy armor, sit in the dirt with them, and admit that you are just as terrified, exhausted, and lost as they are. But you couldn't do that. Surrendering control feels like death to a high achiever. The sleep deprivation of those early months is a unique kind of torture that strips away all pretenses. In the middle of the night, when the screams echo through the dark hallways, your impressive title means absolutely nothing. Your income cannot buy back your intimacy. So, as the distance between you and your partner grew into a vast canyon, you doubled down. You worked harder. You tried to control the environment even more tightly. If the house was perfectly clean, if the finances were flawlessly managed, if the baby's schedule was executed with military precision, then surely the relationship would survive. You tried to logic your way out of a broken home. And it spectacularly backfired. The harder you gripped the steering wheel, the faster the car spun out of control. Now, you are left staring at legal documents, utterly bewildered. You poured every ounce of your intellect and energy into making this work. You did everything right on paper. Yet here you are, a master strategist completely defeated by a game you didn't even realize you were playing. You can't outwork a broken heart, and you can't run a cost-benefit analysis on a fractured family. In fact, trying to force a solution triggers a psychological trap so deeply wired into the high achiever's brain, almost no one sees the ultimate crash coming until it's already too late. When the legal papers are finally signed, and the moving boxes are unpacked in your new, painfully quiet apartment, the adrenaline completely leaves your body. For the first time in your life, there is no next step to execute. There is no strategy left to deploy. There is only an overwhelming, suffocating silence. And in that profound silence, you finally come face to face with the ambition penalty. This is the hidden tax exacted on the elite performer. It is the agonizing realization that the very drive, obsession, and relentless perfectionism that made you a titan in the professional world have rendered you fundamentally incompatible with the chaotic, unconditional nature of a family. At the office, your ambition is rewarded with bonuses, promotions, and deep respect. People look at you with awe. They ask you for advice. They want to be you. But walk through your own front door, and that exact same ambition becomes a destructive weapon. It turned you into a hypercritical manager of your own home, suffocating the very people you promised to protect. Now, you live in a split reality. It is a psychological whiplash so severe it threatens to snap your sanity in half. Tomorrow morning, you will put on a meticulously tailored suit. You will stand in front of a room full of brilliant people and confidently dictate the future of your company. They will nod. They will take notes. They will believe every single word you say. But tonight? Tonight you are sitting on the floor of a half-empty room, staring at a custody schedule on your phone, doing the brutal math to figure out exactly how many days a month you actually get to wake up in the same house as your own child. You think about the weekends you will spend alone, wandering through a quiet apartment, waiting for your legally designated time to be a parent again. The pristine, beautifully painted nursery you once planned with such naive optimism is now divided across 2 separate zip codes. You are a hero to your shareholders, but you feel like an absolute fraud in the mirror. This is the ego-driven revelation that brings the type A professional to their knees. Your entire self-worth has been permanently anchored to your ability to win. To conquer. To build things that last. But the one thing you wanted to build more than anything else, a safe, unbroken foundation for your child, has entirely collapsed under your watch. The shame is completely paralyzing. It is a heavy, dark secret you carry into every board meeting, hiding it behind a confident smile and a firm handshake. You tell yourself that you failed your child. You tell yourself that all the money, all the accolades, and all the status mean absolutely nothing if you couldn't keep your family together. You have been exposed, not as a master of the universe, but as a deeply terrified human being who doesn't know how to simply love and be loved without attaching a metric to it. The ambition penalty isn't just about losing your partner, it's about the total collapse of your identity. So, if you can't fix it, and you can't outsmart it, how do you survive the wreckage without losing your mind, or your relationship with your child? To survive the aftermath of this collapse, you must do the one thing that violates every single instinct in your high-achieving DNA. You have to commit the unthinkable. You must surrender. For someone who has spent their entire adult life bending the world to their will, the word surrender sounds exactly like defeat. It sounds like giving up. But in the jagged, unpredictable wreckage of a broken family, surrender is the only mechanism of survival. It is not about abandoning your child or walking away from your responsibilities. It is about violently letting go of the delusion that you can engineer human emotions, mandate forgiveness, or control the outcome of a fractured dynamic. Your entire career has been built on a very specific, very dangerous lie, the illusion of control. You were taught, and heavily compensated, to believe that if you anticipate every variable and apply enough brute force, you can guarantee a successful result. But love has no variables you can manipulate. A traumatized, grieving former partner cannot be managed. A confused, crying toddler cannot be optimized. When you finally realize this, a profound and radical reprogramming must take place. You have to learn the agonizing difference between managing a family and actually being present in the wreckage. When your legally designated custody weekend arrives, your reflex will be to overcompensate. You will want to plan a flawless itinerary, buy the best toys, and curate a perfect, frictionless experience to prove that you are still a good parent. You will try to pack an entire week of parenting into 48 highly optimized hours. You must fight that urge with everything you have. If your child is melting down because they miss their other parent, you do not draft a solution. You do not try to distract them with a strategic intervention. You sit on the floor. You hold them. You let it be messy. You let it be loud. You accept the discomfort without trying to fix it. This requires a brutal, unflinching acceptance that the picture-perfect vision of your new family is gone forever. It is dead. The matching holiday pajamas, the flawless social media narrative, the single, unbroken home, you have to mourn them, bury them, and walk away. If you spend your life trying to glue the shattered pieces of that old vision back together, you will spend your life bleeding from the edges. You have to stop trying to resurrect a ghost, and start living in the deeply imperfect reality standing right in front of you. This is the new definition of success. It is no longer about forcing a victorious outcome. It is about your capacity to withstand the chaos without flinching. It is about emotional endurance rather than strategic dominance. But shedding that old armor comes with a terrifying cost. When you stop aggressively managing your environment, the quiet rushes back in. And in that quiet, you are left entirely unprotected. Stepping away from the illusion of control might stop the bleeding, but it forces you to face a terrifying void. If you are no longer the flawless partner, the perfect parent, or the ultimate problem solver, who are you when the titles are stripped away? When the titles are stripped away, and the illusion of control finally shatters, you are left standing in the absolute center of the void. For the first time in your adult life, there is no corporate armor to hide behind. There is no brilliant strategy to shield you from the terrifying reality of just being a flawed, ordinary human being. And right there, in the quietest and most vulnerable moment you have ever experienced, you discover a completely different kind of power. You realize that the strength you wielded in the boardroom was always fragile. It relied entirely on compliance. It required metrics, predictable outcomes, and the constant, intoxicating validation of your peers. But true power, the kind of power that actually anchors a child's life and heals a fractured dynamic, requires no audience. It demands no quarterly reports. It only requires you to show up, completely defenseless, and stay in the room when it hurts. Slowly, painfully, you begin to build a new framework for your self-worth. You stop measuring your value by the fires you can extinguish, and you start measuring it by the emotional spaces you can safely hold. When your child looks at you, they do not see a vice president. They do not see an elite strategist, and they absolutely do not care about your year-end profit margins. They only see the person who sits with them in the dark when the shadows are scary. They see the person who listens to their sprawling, nonsensical stories without anxiously checking a smartwatch. They see someone who doesn't scramble to aggressively fix their tears, but simply wraps them in a warm embrace and lets them cry until the storm passes. By letting go of your deep-seated savior complex, you finally become the parent your child actually needs. You become a steady, grounded force in two separate homes, rather than an anxious, suffocating dictator in one. You learn to speak to your former partner not as an underperforming employee who missed a critical benchmark, but as a deeply exhausted human being who is trying desperately, just like you, to navigate an agonizing transition. This is the new paradigm of power. It is incredibly quiet. It is deeply unglamorous. It will never earn you a sleek glass trophy, and it will never be celebrated in a global company newsletter. But it is the only achievement that will actually outlive you. You used to genuinely believe that a successful life meant a perfect, unbroken life. You thought a fractured home automatically meant a broken legacy. But as you sit on the living room floor of your new apartment, watching your child laugh wildly at something completely insignificant, the heavy, suffocating weight of the ambition penalty finally lifts from your chest. You can finally breathe. You understand now that the total destruction of your perfect picture was not the end of your story. The paralyzing pain, the divorce lawyers, and the crushing loss of control burned away the massive ego you were quietly suffocating beneath. It violently forced you to stop performing and start genuinely living. The broken family was never a sign of your ultimate failure, it was the brutal, necessary catalyst for your true evolution. You finally possessed the blueprint to build a life and a legacy you don't need to escape from, but are you brave enough to let go of your old identity today?